back to Kingston, and I'm going to be sharing the story of my recent journey to Kingston, Jamaica. My mom, who is originally from Kingston, Jamaica, immigrated here over 40 years ago, but hasn't been back to Jamaica in over 15 years. My mom and I, along with my sister Mia and niece and other family members, traveled back to Kingston, Jamaica, but not for a vacation, but for a funeral. Unfortunately, many of our trips to Jamaica were to attend a funeral, but this trip was different, a turning point for our family. We went to bury my cousin Kanique, who was like a son to my mother. One of his greatest dreams was to move to the United States, but never got to actualize this dream. Going to Kingston for me has always been emotionally challenging. When many people see Jamaica, they see picturesque beaches and amazing food. But when I see Jamaica, I see a collage of beauty and struggle, joy existing alongside fear, colored or shaded with a people of great strength and determination. Going there as a child was blissful. I remember the first time meeting my cousins, the children of my grandaunt, and playing with them every day, not mindful of the poverty and the devastation around me. But what forever shifted my childhood blissful perspective of Kingston was the first trip that I took as an adult in my early 20s. I was old enough to see and understand the poverty, the devastation, and the crime. My maturity had rained on my parade. Though Kingston has its beauty in areas of prosperity and a rich culture, I couldn't unsee the other things that I saw, especially as it relates to some of my family that still lives in Kingston. But God had something in store for this trip. I was asked to read the eulogy at my cousin's funeral. The family decided to wear all white, so of course I made myself something to wear. If you know anything about Jamaicans, you know that no matter what, they stepping out clean. Dancehall culture was one of my first and major inspirations as a fashion designer. We stayed at the Rock Hotel in Kingston, which was amazing. I spent most of my time by the pool, resting and reading and catching up with family. Despite the sadness of the circumstance that brought us all together, my heart was so full, not only seeing my cousins that were my age group, but their babies. As much as I wanted my children to be there to meet their cousins and play like we did in our childhood, everyone agreed that I needed a break. I agreed too. Not only did I get much needed rest, but I got to spend time with my mom and greatly enjoyed seeing her rest and enjoy her time in Jamaica, catching up with childhood friends and seeing family, many she'd only seen virtually, and of course eating her favorite dishes.
Tastes beef patty.
Then the day came, the day of the funeral. The joy of our gathering gave way to mourning, the reason why we gathered. A son, a brother, a father, and a cousin was gone too soon. As I sat before the casket, reality set in. The one who was always the first to greet us whenever we traveled to Kingston was gone. The one who was often the first, sometimes the only one to comment on some of my Facebook page posts was gone. The one who was there virtually at all birthday celebrations and family gatherings was gone. The one who my mom didn't allow distance to stop her from caring for as a son, her beloved nephew, was gone. Survived by an amazing and strong common law wife and his 4 awesome children. Visiting Kingston will never be the same without Kanique. The repast was like an unplanned family reunion. For me, it was a joyful reminder of the first time I met my cousins in Jamaica during a funeral. Now the mourning moved out of the way for joy, the joy of being reunited. At this point, we all knew something had to change, and that was letting funerals be the reason that we united. The day after the funeral, we all went to Hellshire Beach. A friend of the family recommended that we go to Prendy's, a well-known restaurant on the beach. As I entered, I was taken aback by a whiteboard menu that greets you at the entrance. This whiteboard menu, while sharing its soup options, shared the gospel. From then on, I knew I was in the right place. I was happy to be in a place in which the owner was a bold believer. Shortly after, I had the privilege of meeting Miss Donette Pendergrass, bold, fiery, passionate woman of God. A woman I had only known for 10 minutes, but was already family. While our food was being prepared, we enjoyed a time of riding the waves and eating pepper shrimp and drinking conch soup and singing and dancing. We then ate and enjoyed platters of Eshkavich fish festival, steamed fish, and fried lobster. As I spent time hanging out with my cousins and hugging my youngest cousin, an 8-month-old who had made me long for my 1-year-old at home, I sensed the Spirit of God prompting me to pray with my family. I knew what God was calling me to do. So my plan was to pray with them when we got back to the hotel. But I quickly learned that I would not have that opportunity, but that the time was now. It was going to be right there on the beach. I quickly remembered that the owner was a bold believer, and I just knew in my heart that if I asked her to turn down the music so I could pray with my family, that she would do so. But what happened next, I could have never imagined. My plan to stand over in a corner with my cousins and pray was not going to happen. But as Miss Pendergrass got on the mic to tell all in the restaurant that we would be praying, God executed His plan. Mrs. Pendergrass took the mic and proceeded to evangelize and make bold declarations and prayers over my family. She even prophesied to one of my cousins. I then knew that I needed to shift from my mindset of hiding in a corner to being bold and operating in authority. As Mrs. Pendergrass handed me the mic, tears began to fall from my eyes and a groaning in my spirit as I prayed for my family. What I thought would be just a day on the beach eating good food turned out to be a day of great purpose and a pivotal moment. I would have never thought that one day I would be standing on the shores of Hellshire Beach in Jamaica, calling on the name of the Lord and ministering. That day, my sister Mia and I gave our cousins our word that it wouldn't take a funeral for us to come and see them. As I made my way home, I reflected on what God did, and I was also reminded that my life is not my own, and that I needed to be ready to be used by God in any situation, anywhere in the world, regardless of who was watching. Revelations 12 verse 11 says, "And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they loved not their lives even unto death." Meaning that they overcame the attacks of the enemy by the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross and the words that they confessed by faith. That day on the beach, I confessed and believed that God would save my family and that God would bless my family. Though this mission was finished, my work has just begun.